What's your first recollection of what your end game was when you started the business?
Oh, I mean, it was very clearly defined. I mean, I had defined, in 1996 as I brought my fellow partners together to ask them to make investments and stuff. It was the plan was, I mean, I was coming out of an executive MBA, and the plan was we drive this, we grow this to $100 million over the next 10 years, and then we do an IPO. It was as clear as day.
That's right. Yeah.
So that was the original plan. I mean, that plan changed as we started to go forward. I mean, we eclipsed that financial goal by year 8, and then continue to grow, and just decided that an IPO wasn't necessarily, what we wanted to do. So I think, my ambitions as a 29-year-old founding my company became very different when I was nudging 40, when we got to, 10 years in. This was not a legacy business that we were building to hand down generation to generation to generation. When we set the business up, I recognized that I had external shareholders who were not operating people in the business. So we couldn't treat our business like it was our personal piggy bank. With the intention that we were going to do an IPO when we first started, with 10 years out, we started to behave at day one the same way that we would have behaved as a public company after that. So we didn't have to go in, and again, that's where if you're running a lifestyle business, that tax planning isn't the same that we did when we started it versus when somebody else starts it. Because if you're putting cars and you're putting other things through your business, and that's great. That's a more of a lifestyle. Like, you're using your company as a lifestyle vehicle, as
Correct.
opposed to, and those are two different tax planning structures.
Correct.
So yeah, so when, our story, when we went, we built the business, and we behaved from day one like we were going to be a public company someday,
Yeah.
which made the exit a whole lot cleaner, because you're not having to go in and for us, we didn't have to go in and clean up a whole bunch of, okay, yeah, we've got, yeah, we have a cottage that's sort of owned by, by the company, or we have boats or cars or planes or other things that are for personal use. So that was how we built that structure. So and again, because we had multiple partnerships, and we had partnerships sort of globally and things like that, every time we went in somewhere, we had the blueprint for it. It wasn't like we had to go in and reinvent it every single time we went into, if we went into a local market, Hungary, for example, and took on local partners in the beginning. It was the same way that we did it when we went into, Amsterdam, or when we went into, initially into the United States. So it was developing that, and understand that was the end. That was all going to be directed towards the end game. So it became much easier to, when you get approached or you start to decide on that end game, you're not having to spend a whole bunch of time. For us, we didn't have to spend a whole bunch of time restructuring things. We hired great tax, advisors. I mean, we had tax advisors all the way through, but when we actually got the transaction, there were things that we did in our own personal worlds, each of the shareholders, to make sure that we were maximizing our exit value from a taxation standpoint, to your point, that we weren't overpaying. But that was more towards the end, that, okay, now we've decided that we've got a value, and we understand how. So we're setting up double hold codes and all kinds of crazy things to create effective tax structures. When you end up with generational wealth that comes at you quickly, setting up the framework to make sure that you're ready, and that you're not handing your kids a problem 30 years down the line. That was part of the planning that we did beforehand.